And now, coming to you from the nation's capital on WEBR, it's the Frantic Force with Norman Ball, Associate Political Editor of the Potomac Journal, and Leo Gerard, host of Leo Gerard's Point Taken.
This is Sam Waterston, and I've called in because I'm concerned about what I'm seeing in our national parks. When we think about our national parks, we have images of cannons on the battlefield at Gettysburg, grizzly bears at Glacier, or the soaring face of Half Dome at Yosemite, and we remember again the visits we've made with family and friends. We don't think of potholes, crumbling historic sites, dusty and neglected artifacts, and school children being turned away from educational programs because there are too few rangers. Yet this is what's happening because our national parks don't have the federal funding they need. The 100th anniversary of our national parks is less than 8 years away. Let's return our national parks to their full splendor. Join me and help protect our national parks and historic landmarks for our children and grandchildren. Thank you for your concern.
Visit the National Parks Conservation Association website at npca.org/radio or call 1-800-NAT-PARK.
Welcome back to the Frantic Force with Norman Ball and Leo Gerard.
Investing. Now, there's a term that got taken to the races by the financial services industry. However, in the current climate, no words are above suspicion. There is no business as usual. First of all, investing implies a future. Almost immediately then, the question begs a fitting object. Invest in what? If there are no promising investments, then it makes sense to consume now. Perhaps the consumption binge of the last few years signals some subconscious realization that investment horizons under the present economic regime have reached a terminus. The current insanity in the markets reflects a fundamental disturbance. The wisdom of the markets, more eclipsing than any financial regime, is still intact. We have simply passed into the crazy like a fox stage. Therefore, I categorically dispute Stephen Sachs' assertion that the markets are broken. No, they are dubiously reflecting a broken worldview, which is to say they are working as markets should. Now, about that worldview. When the banks hoard liquidity, curtail loan activity, deny letters of credit, pull evergreen loans on long-standing viable businesses, they are declaring a moratorium on a future cast in their own likeness. They are putting a gun to the head of the fractional reserve system. This is a form of assisted suicide. It also suggests that there are many bankers who fundamentally misunderstand the very Ponzi scheme that they are charged with perpetuating. Imagine Charles Ponzi declaring in a sudden loss of nerve, "Gads, what a big damn pyramid I've made! Mommy, help!" Come to think of it, isn't that what NASD's Bernard Madoff just said? It's all a big lie, a Ponzi scheme. Bank recapitalization cannot take a front seat to fresh loan activity. Frankly, sound capitalization rates are a luxury, sort of a fig leaf pulled across a shell game. What will preserve the banks is, paradoxically, the resumption of disaster, i.e. fresh loan activity. Yes, I meant to say that. The only thing standing between us and imminent disaster is postponed disaster. To understand the banking system and its imperative for creating fresh money, a euphemism really for fresh debt, is to understand the utter hopelessness of the situation. Thus, banks only kid themselves when they equate self-preservation with the cessation of loan activity. Perhaps each one thinks it can survive a systemic collapse. But aren't they counterpartied into a daisy-chain death grip anyways? Doesn't this bring us to the ultimate poison pill in an altogether poisonous system? Credit default swaps. The banks are a Ponzi scheme. They cannot hoard. They must move ever onwards in order to provide the economy with the loans it needs to service the existing debt. The only way to avoid the abyss is to forestall the abyss. Banks must resume their assault on the stratosphere, or else the sky will fall in on them. Of course, one day the sun will singe their wings and they will careen back to earth. A capitalism with the banks as money creators is a form of madness. So the modern economy is really petitioning us, how would you like me to die? And herein lays the central crisis of capitalism. The many bubbles of the Greenspan era were not aberrations. They are the advanced stages of a capitalist system as it gasps for breath in a mad bid to manufacture growth and perpetuate the pretense of capitalism, long since given over to cronyism. We have 2.2 cars per household in America, and the number of dwelling spaces outstrips the number of households. We are awash in things. For one thing, durable goods have become so damn durable, damn them. Cars last 9.5 years. My mom has a 30-year-old washing machine. No wonder GE picked up a GE Capital crack habit. The same can be said for GM and GMAC. Cars are those silly things shoved in the showroom windows to sell credit. You only have to look at Detroit's keen attention to detail, not to see that cars are an afterthought, a means to an end. The only thing left to sell is mindless consumption on ever more trivial things. America sells buying. Death of a salesman, hardly. Every door that Willie Loman knocks, a fellow salesman answers, suitcase in hand. Thanks, Willie, you saved me a walk over to your house. Care for some Amway products? And would your pyramid like to join my pyramid for drinks? It seems to me two growth horizons remain, God help us. War, the military-industrial complex, i.e., breaking a whole lot of stuff so we can rebuild a whole lot of stuff. And financial chicanery, i.e., papering over the horrible fact that we're no longer building stuff. Now, the latter has been thoroughly discredited despite Treasury Secretary Paulson's frantic attempts to pull the curtain back across the Wizard of Oz's control room. Quite laughable. The former has also suffered a credibility ding by a guy who allegedly traipses across the mountains of Afghanistan on horseback. Americans need to question the deservingness of their future. What have we done to earn a bright future? And buying SUVs doesn't count. Consumption and the attendant affluence is not sufficient reason. Consumption without purpose is simply taking up space. Really the business of locusts and grasshoppers. Great purpose has been diversified away. Some bean counter decided it was inefficient. I've always suspected frenetic consumption conceals a core crisis. The last few months have done nothing to disabuse me of this suspicion. I think I may be turning Marxist. I really think so.
TheFranticForce.com is a WEBR production, broadcasting live and in the fresh out of beautiful Merrifield, Virginia. Continue the conversation with Norm and Leo at TheFranticForce.com. That's TheFranticForce.com. TheFranticForce.com.